The ship appeared out of nowhere. In a moment, the space near Veritha's trade route was empty. The next moment, a ship appeared. It was small and ugly by galactic standards. The hull was covered in burn marks and stains. The engines emitted a sound that monitoring stations could hear even through a vacuum. A sort of shrill noise that suggested the ship was held together by luck and nothing else. The police officers from Monitoring Station 12 looked at each other in confusion. They worked on this route for decades. They knew all the types of ships that traveled through Concord space. This didn't match anything in their records. Unknown ship, transmitted the superior officer. Identify yourself and indicate your origin. There was a pause. Then a voice appeared, speaking in a language no one recognized. After a few moments, the ship's computer seemed to find a common business language. And the voice spoke again. This is the HSS Wanderer exploration ship from Earth. We came in peace. We are looking for other intelligent life. The officers looked at their screens. Terra. They had never heard of it. The Galactic database contained records of more than 12,000 inhabited worlds. Among Concord's 847 species, Earth was not among them. Wanderer, you have entered the Galactic Space Concord. You must go to the nearest registration station for processing and identification. Understood. The voice replied. Can you send us instructions? Our maps do not show this region. The senior officer slowly shook his head. A new species. It happened maybe once every few centuries. Normally, it was a simple matter. The new species would be evaluated, recorded, and given a place in the Concord hierarchy. Most ended up somewhere in between, trading and working and slowly becoming part of galactic civilization. He transmitted the coordinates of Recording Station 9 and observed the strange ship. Adjusting his course, he made a note in his diary and thought no more about it. He had no way of knowing that this moment would change everything. The Wanderer limped through space toward the station. Inside, the crew of 23 worked at their posts. They had been traveling for 4 years. They left Earth full of hope and wonder, eager to discover what lay beyond their solar system. They encountered empty worlds, dead worlds, and worlds so hostile that even looking at them was dangerous. They began to wonder if they were alone in the universe. Now they knew they were not alone. And Captain Elena Vasquez wasn't sure whether to be excited or terrified. She was a tall woman, with dark hair turning gray at the temples. His face was marked by years of stress and responsibility. She had been a naval officer before joining the Survey Corps and still carried herself with military precision today. Her crew loved her because she was fair and because she never asked them to do anything. She wouldn't do it alone. What do we know? She asked her superior officers. Lieutenant Commander James Park displayed the data on his screen. Their technology is advanced, much more advanced than ours. These monitoring stations alone have energy signatures that surpass anything we can produce. Whatever civilization we encounter, they are far beyond us weapons. We have detected several military ships in the area. They could all destroy us without trying. Vasquez nodded slowly. So we smile, we are polite, and we hope they are friendly. That's my recommendation, Captain. The Wanderer continued his course. 2 days later, they received a distress signal. It came from a small cargo ship adrift near an asteroid field. The signal was weak and broken, but the message was quite clear. The ship was damaged. Life support was failing. The crew was dying. Vasquez looked at the signal's coordinates. Then, on the way to Checkpoint 9, the freighter was in the opposite direction. How long until we get to them? She asked. 3 hours at top speed, Park replied. And the registration station will be delayed 2 days if we deviate. Vasquez didn't hesitate. Change course. We will help them. No one argued on the bridge. They were explorers, but they were also human. They didn't let people die if they could help. The Wanderer pushed his damaged engines as far as he could. 3 hours and 12 minutes later, they arrived at the freighter. It was in poor condition. A collision with debris tore off one side of the hull. Emergency seals maintained the atmosphere inside, but the power was failing and the temperature inside was dropping rapidly. Vasquez led the rescue team herself. They wore their heavy environmental suits and carried medical equipment and emergency supplies. Docking was difficult because the freighter's decompression chamber was partially damaged, but they managed to get inside. They found the crew. There were 14 of them, and they were not human. Vasquez studied the brief transmission from the monitoring station. She knew there were other species here, but knowing and seeing were different things. These beings were small, perhaps a meter tall, with thin bodies covered in grayish-green skin. They had arms and large dark eyes that seemed to take up half their faces. They were huddled in the center of the ship, shaking and afraid. For a long moment, humans and aliens simply looked at each other. Then Vasquez took off his helmet. The air was thin and cold, but breathable. She knelt down, so she was closer to the aliens' level. "We're here to help," she said slowly. "We don't want to harm you." The aliens spoke to each other in rapid, high-pitched voices. One of them, a little bigger than the others, took a step forward. He touched a device on his chest, and when he spoke again, Vasquez could understand him. "You are an unknown species. Why do you help?" "Because you needed help," Vasquez said simply. "That's reason enough." The aliens looked at each other again. Something happened between them. Some communication Vasquez couldn't read. Then the big one spoke again. "We are Veth. We thank you, strangers. But you shouldn't have come. You shouldn't have helped us." "Why not?" Before Veth could respond, Park's voice came through her communication device. "Captain, we have a problem. 3 ships have just come off a faster-than-light trip. They're big, and they're coming straight at us." Vasquez got up. "Take Veth to our ship." They all move. Humans work fast. They carried the wounded and supported those who could walk. The Veth were light and easy to move, but they seemed reluctant, almost afraid of being rescued. The big one kept trying to explain something, but there was no time to listen. They got everyone aboard the Wanderer as soon as the 3 ships arrived. They were warships. Even someone who had never seen alien ships before could tell that. They were shaped like blades, elegant and sharp, and were filled with weapons. They surrounded the Wanderer in a triangular formation, preventing any unknown vessels from escaping. A new voice broadcast. "You have taken possession of the Orcs domain. You will hand over this property immediately, or it will be destroyed." Vasquez felt something cold in his stomach. She walked to the bridge and looked at the main screen. The warships were huge, each at least 10 times larger than his small exploration ship. "This is Captain Elena Vasquez of the HSS Wanderer. Please explain what you mean by property." "The Veth you stole. They belong to the Orcs domain, and they are marked by debt. They and their work are ours by law. You will return them now." Vasquez looked at the Veth huddled in its cargo hold. They were people, thinking, sentient beings who were afraid and died, and these Orcs called them property. "I don't understand your law," she said carefully, "but I can't return these people to you. They were dying. We saved them. They are now under my protection." There was silence on the Orcs ships. Then the voice came back, and he was older than before. "You are new to this galaxy, so let's explain at once. The Veth are a species marked by debt. Their ancestors owed a great debt to the Orcs domain. This debt was not paid. Until paid, all Veth are the property of the Dominion. This is the law of Concord. This is accepted by all species. You stole from us. You will return what you stole or face the consequences." Vasquez thought about the land. She thought about the story she had learned at school, about the centuries of slavery and the wars fought to end it. She thought about everything humanity has suffered and overcome. "No," she said. "Do you refuse?" "I refuse. These are people, not property. I will not hand them over to be slaves." More silence. The Orcs ships appeared to get closer, although their position did not actually change. "So you have become an enemy of the Orcs domain. We will take Veth by force, and we will take you too. Your ship and crew will be sold to pay for the trouble you caused. This is your last chance to surrender." Vasquez looked at his crew. They were scared. She could see it in their faces, but she also saw something else. She saw determination. She saw pride. They knew what she was going to say and supported her. "Walker for Orcs ships." "My answer is no. It will always be no. If you want these people, you will have to come and get them." She cut the transmission and turned to her team. "Battle stations. Let's see what this old ship can do." Commander Orcs stared at the screen in disbelief. His ship could crush the human ship like a bug. His weapons could reduce him to atoms in seconds. But this strange captain refused to surrender. "Fools," he muttered. "They die for useless Veth." He gave the order to attack, but as his ships advanced, so did the Wanderer. He didn't run away. Dived straight towards the asteroid field. "Weavy. O campo de asteroides era labyrinto de rochas pontilhadas mortes, do tamanho de montañas que caem na escuridao." Some moved slowly, floating like sleeping giants. Others spun quickly, their sharp points catching the light of distant stars. One wrong move, one small mistake, and any ship would be destroyed. The Wanderer flew through it like a dancer. Lieutenant Commander Park was in command, his hands moving across the controls with desperate speed. Sweat ran down his face. His eyes never left the screens that showed the countryside around him. Behind him, the crew worked in tense silence. Each person focused on their task, miles away from the dense zone, said Navigator Chun. If we can reach it, they won't be able to keep up with the information. If we get there, Park muttered. Big if. Behind them, the 3 Corax warships pursued them. They were faster than the Walker, but they were also bigger. The narrow gaps between the asteroids that the human ship easily passed through were dangerous passages for larger ships. Still they came. Their commanders were furious now, insulted that such a small ship would dare run away from them. Captain Vasquez stood in the center of the bridge, watching everything at once. His face was calm, but his mind was racing. They couldn't fight the Corax, not directly. These warships had weapons that could burn the Wanderer's hull like paper. They had shield-s that could avoid anything the human ship could throw at them. But they also had pride, and pride made people stupid. Engineering, Vasquez said into his communicator. How are we? Chief Engineer Rodriguez's voice came back, tense and worried. The engines are warming up, Captain. We are pushing them beyond safe limits. I can give you maybe another hour at this speed before anything important is understood. Keep them running as long as you can. Captain, Park shouted. Lead Corax, the ship is approaching. They will have weapons range in 3 minutes. Vasquez looked at the tactical display. The lead warship was ahead of the other 2, eager to catch the humans and end the chase. His Ender wanted the glory of the capture. Perfect when they come into range. They will try to incapacitate us, not destroy us, Vasquez said. They want us alive to sell. That means they're going to target our engines, which means they're going to have to get closer, Park realized. Through asteroids, exactly. Chun, find me the most dangerous part of this field. The tightest grip you can find. Chun fiddled with the console, studying. The maze of stones ahead. There is a cluster about 4 kilometers ahead. The opening through it is barely bigger than our ship. A Corax battleship wouldn't fit. That's our target. Park, take us there. The Wanderer dove deeper into the asteroid field. Stones scraped against the hull. Alarms sounded and were silenced. The ship rocked and shook, but kept flying. Behind them, the main warship Corax followed. It was piloted by Commander Zeth, a 30-year veteran of the Dominion fleet. He never missed a target, never failed in his duty. He would not fail now. Increase speed, he ordered. Put me in gun range. Commander, the asteroids, I don't care about the asteroids. I want that ship. His ship pushed forward. It was bigger than the Wanderer, but it was also built for war. Its hull could suffer impacts that would destroy the human ship. He began to close the distance to the Walker. Park watched the distance shrink. 1 minute to weapons range. How far away is the cluster? 90 seconds, 30 seconds more. Vasquez looked at the screen, calculating, thinking. There had to be a way. Then she saw it. A large asteroid slowly rotating in front of them. If they timed it well, if Park could fly well enough, they could use him. Park, do you see that rock in direction 75? He looked, the big one. The one that's spinning? Yes. Can you fly after him? Use it as cover. Park stuttered the movement of the asteroid, doing the math in his head. It's tight. Very tight. But maybe I will. The hiker changed direction, leaning toward the huge rotating rock. Behind them, Commander Zeth saw what they were doing and laughed. They are trying to hide behind a rock. He told the bridge crew, pathetic. Weapons, prepare to fire as soon as we get a clear shot. The human ship disappeared behind the asteroid. Zeth's warship turned to follow him, sensors searching for its target. The Wanderer is gone. For 3 seconds, Zeth felt confusion. Then anger. Where are they? Find them. Commander. No, they are on the surface of the asteroid. Zeth looked. The human ship didn't simply hide behind the rock. It had fallen on him. The Walker clung to the engines on the asteroid's surface, completely still. In the chaos of the spinning, staggering field, it looked like just another piece of rubble. And when Zeth's warship rounded the asteroid, the humans moved. The Walker's cargo compartment doors opened. 3 objects flew by, small and fast, aimed directly at the Corax ship. They were mining charges, intended to dismember asteroids to the ground. From mineral extraction. They were not military weapons, but they were explosives, and they hit the battleship's shields at point-blank range. The shields held. Barely, but the impact pushed the warship sideways toward a cluster of smaller asteroids. Zeth's pilot tried to compensate, tried to move away, but the ship was too big and moving too fast. The battleship hit the first asteroid at an angle. The impact was not enough to destroy it, but it caused the ship to spin. He hit a second rock, then a third. Alarms sounded, breaches in the hull opened on the port side. And then, falling out of control, the Orcs warship crashed head-on into a huge boulder. The explosion lit up the asteroid field like a small sun in the Wanderer. The crew watched in shocked silence. They did it. They destroyed a Orcs warship. An unarmed exploration vessel has killed one of the most feared military ships in the galaxy. Then the cheering started. Vasquez let them celebrate for 10 seconds. Then she raised her hand. We're not done yet. The other two ships are still out there, and we're just making them very angry, as if to prove their point. The communication system came to life. Human vessel. The voice was different from before. Cooler, more controlled. You destroyed a Orcs domain ship. You killed our brothers and sisters. For this, there will be no capture. No sale. Just death. We're coming after you. The transmission has ended. Captain Shin reported that her voice was shaking slightly. The two remaining warships are approaching. They won't pass the field. This time, they are getting around it. They'll isolate us in about 20 minutes. Vasquez nodded. She expected this. What's beyond the field? Open space. Some trade routes. The nearest station is about 6 hours away at our best speed. They'll catch us long before then. Vasquez thought for a moment. And the planets? Anything we can use? Chin searched his screens. There's a gas giant 3 hours away. It has a ring system. Lots of debris, like this field, but spread out more widely. This is our destiny. Park, make us walk. The Wanderer emerged from the asteroid field and ran towards the gas giant. Behind them, the two Orcs warships completed the circle and gave chase. They were faster. They would catch up, but Vasquez bought time, and time was everything in the cargo hold. The Veth watched and listened. They didn't understand everything that was happening, but they understood enough. These strange beings from an unknown world fought for them, died for them. The leader of the Veth group approached one of the human crew members who was checking them out. Her name was Sarah, and she was the ship's doctor. Why? The Veth asked, why do you fight? You could have given it back to us. You would be safe now. Sarah looked at the little alien with gentle eyes. Because where we come from, people are not property. Everyone is free. Everyone has value. But we are Veth. We have been scarred by debt for 1,000 generations. That's how it's always been. So it's time for things to change. Veth didn't know how to respond to that. No one had ever said such things to them before. No one ever suggested that the way things were was not the way things should be. The trip to the gas giant took 3 hours. The Orcs warships closed the distance slowly, saving their speed for the final attack. They knew that humans could not escape. They were not in a hurry. Inside the Wanderer, the crew prepared themselves for what was to come. They moved the Veth to the most protected part of the ship. They sealed every compartment, checked every system, and tried not to think about how this would probably end once they reached the gas giant. It was huge. A spinning ball of orange and red clouds, with rings of ice and rocks spreading around them. The Wanderer dove into the rings, seeking shelter among the rubble. They are right behind us. Park reported. Vasquez watched the tactical display. 2 battleships, both ready for blood. They wouldn't make the same mistake as their brother. They wouldn't run blindly. How many mining fees do we have left? 7, Rodriguez replied. That's not enough to take down battleships, I know. But I have an idea. Vasquez pulled out a diagram of the ring system. This debris isn't just rocks. There's a lot of ice. And where there is ice, there is water. And where there is water, Park understood what she meant. Hydrogen and oxygen. If we can light it, we can make our own weapons. It was dangerous. It was desperate. It was their only chance. The Nexar was the longest of their lives. The Walker flew through the rings, dropping charges, releasing fuel, creating a trail of explosive material hidden among the ice and rocks. The Orcs followed, cautious but relentless. Finally, there was nowhere left to run. The Wanderer emerged from the densest part of the rings into a relatively clear area. The 2 warships blocked their path, weapons equipped and ready, human ship. The Youth High Assembly of the Galactic Concord existed 12,000 years ago. It was a great chamber carved into the heart of Nexus Prime, a world of stations at the center of known space. The ceiling rose so high that clouds sometimes formed beneath it. The walls were covered with symbols of 847 species, each representing a member of Concord. Light streamed in through the crystal windows that showed the stars beyond. Today, the chamber was full. Representatives of all major species came. They sat in their assigned sections, ranked by power and importance. The great powers sat closest to the central platform. The lesser species sat higher up, in the shadows, where their voices mattered less. On the central platform was Ambassador Orcs speaking on behalf of the Dominion. He was tall for his kind, with distinctive bony crests and dark red scales that marked the elite of the Korok. His voice carried through the chamber, high-pitched and angry. "We demand justice," he declared. "A wild species from unknown space attacked our ships for no reason. They stole our property. They murdered our people. This cannot go unanswered." Murmurs echoed through the assembly. The story spread quickly. Everyone knew about the strange human ship and its impossible victories. The Dominion of Korok calls this assembly to declare humanity a rebellious species. Korok's continued. They should be classified as dangerous predators, subject to extermination on sight. Their world, wherever it is, must be found and purified. This is the only way to protect the peace and stability of Concord. He stepped back, satisfied with his speech. Now the answer came: silence. Representative after representative looked away as Korok's eyes met theirs. The great powers combined by the Tessari, the Relari Federation, the merchant lords of Xenol remained quiet. The lower species did not dare to speak. Finally, the president of the assembly, an ancient being of the Eldith who had held the position for 3 centuries, raised his voice. "Does anyone speak in defense of this new species?" More silence. "Then we'll move on to..." "Wait." The voice came from the upper galleries, where the debt-marked species could watch but never speak. Everyone turned to look. A small figure stood at the railing, looking down at the assembly below. It was a Veth. "You can't talk here," Korok's went off. "You have no voice in this chamber. Guards, remove this creature. Let it talk." The new voice came from the Relari section. Ambassador Relari Zen, a member powerful of one of the 3 great species, rose from his seat. She was covered in silver fur, and her 4 eyes sparkled with interest. "This is irregular," the speaker said carefully. "The Veth have no position." "I am aware of the rules," interrupted Relari Zen. "But I'm also curious. We are about to declare war on a species we know nothing about. Maybe we should listen to someone who actually knew them." The chamber erupted in arguments. Korok protested loudly. Other representatives shouted their opinions. But Relari Zen stood firm, and in the end the speaker relented. "Veth can talk." Briefly, the small figure descended onto the central platform. It was Torek, the same young Veth who had chosen to stay aboard the Wanderer. He traveled for weeks to reach Nexus Prime. Guided by the hidden routes he knew very well. He came alone because he knew his people would never agree to send him. He came because someone had to tell the truth. "My name is Torek," he said. His voice was low, but the chamber's systems carried it to all ears. "I was aboard the cargo ship that the humans rescued. I was there when they arrived." He told his story. He described the damaged ship, the failure of life support, the certainty of death. He told them about the humans arriving with their damaged ship, giving their own supplies to save strangers they had never met. He described Captain Vasquez kneeling before him, promising to help. "They didn't need to save us." Torek said they could have continued to their destination. They could have ignored our distress signal, but they came. They risked everything for people they didn't know. They stole Korok's property. Korok's interrupted. "This is the crime. Not your motives, but your actions." Torek turned to face the ambassador. "Is it a crime to save lives? Is it a crime to refuse to let people die because they are called property? The mark of debt is law. It has been law for 1,000 generations. Humans have violated this law. Maybe the law should be broken." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Even Relari's son looked surprised. No one has ever challenged the debt milestone system so openly. "When the Koroks came to take us back," Torek continued, "the humans could have surrendered us. They could have saved themselves. Instead, they fought. Their captain told the Koroks that she would not hand people over to be slaves. She said that where she came from, everyone is free." He glanced around the chamber, meeting eyes that quickly looked away. "I've lived my whole life like property. My parents were property. They are parents before them. For 1,000 generations, My people served, suffered, and died for debts we did not incur. And during all this time, no one ever defended us. No one ever said it was wrong." His voice cracked slightly. By now, Corix had stepped forward, his face contorted with rage. "This is sentimentality, not justice. Humans attacked our ships. They killed our people. Whatever their reasons, they must be punished. Humans killed your people because your people tried to capture them. For the crime of saving lives," Torek replied. "The humans defended themselves. They had no choice. There is always a choice. They chose violence. No, they chose to fight rather than hand over innocent people to slavery. Where I come from, that would be called courage." The chamber fell silent. Torek's words hung in the air, uncomfortable and impossible to ignore. Finally, the speaker cleared his throat. "We heard the testimony. Now we must decide." The Corix Dominion called for humanity to be declared a rogue species. All in favor, hands, tentacles, and other appendages rose throughout the chamber. "The Corix, of course, are your allies. The species that feared the wrath of the Dominion." The count was made, everyone objected. Some hands went up. The Relari, some of the smaller species that had their own debts. Not many, abstaining. Most of the chamber abstained. They didn't want to anger the Corix, but they also didn't want to vote for extinction. "The movement passes," the speaker announced. "Humanity is declared a rebellious species. They must be captured or killed on the spot. The Corix domain is authorized to use any force necessary to eliminate this threat." Corix then smiled. "Justice will be done." As the assembly began to empty, Torek walked slowly toward the exit. He failed. He came to speak for humans, and it didn't matter. The galaxy had decided. A hand touched his shoulder. He turned around and found Ralarizan looking at him. "You spoke well, young Veth. I was impressed." It didn't matter. Perhaps. Maybe not. The ambassador looked around to make sure no one was listening. The assembly made its decision, but the assembly does not control everything. Some of us found his words interesting. Humans have created a problem for the Corix. Problems have a way of spreading. What do you mean? I mean that maybe humans are not as alone as they think, and maybe your people are not as powerless as you believe. She pressed something into her hand. "If you meet your human friends again, give them this. Tell them that not everyone in the galaxy wants to see them destroyed." Then she was gone, disappearing into the crowd. Point for our EK to look at the object in her hand. It was a meeting on the ship, small and unmarked. He didn't know what was there, but he knew it was important. He had to find the Wanderer. Far from the galaxy, Captain Vasquez was unaware of the assembly's decision. She was too busy trying to keep her ship and crew alive. The Wanderer found refuge in an abandoned mining station on the edge of Concord space. It was a forgotten place, with resources long depleted. But there was power. There was air and walls between them and the void. The ship was in poor condition. One engine was completely destroyed. The hull had so many patches that Rodriguez said it looked like a quilt. Half of the systems ran on backup power. They had enough supplies for perhaps 2 more weeks and were being hunted. The Corax sent a full battle group, 30 warships, each larger than the 3 they had already faced. They were sweeping the sector of space, checking every planet, every station, every asteroid big enough to hide a ship. It was only a matter of time before they found the hiker. Vasquez sat in what had been the station's command center, looking at the tactical display. His officers sat around him, awaiting orders. There were no good options left. "We could run," Park suggested. "Try to get to the edge of Concord space. Maybe find somewhere they can't go." "We can barely move," Rodriguez said. "1 jump, maybe 2, and our remaining engine fails. Then we will be dead in space." "And the Vethrotes?" Chen asked. "The ones Torek showed us before leaving. Some of them might work," Vasquez said slowly. "But they lead deeper into Concord space, not out of it. We would be hidden in the heart of enemy territory." Sarah, the doctor, spoke. "Maybe that's what we need to do. They are looking. They came from the darkness between the stars. Earth was watching. When the Wanderer disappeared into unknown space years ago, he had not traveled alone. The Exploration Corps sent 12 ships in different directions, each probing a different section of the galaxy. They were to be the first wave, the scouts who would chart the path for those who followed them. When the Wanderer made contact with Concord, Earth knew within hours. The faster-than-light communication systems that humans developed were primitive by standards. Galactic ions, but they worked. Reports from Captain Vasquez arrived, telling of a vast civilization ruled by powers that traded slaves and crush the weak. Earth listened, Earth waited, and when the Corax declared war, Earth responded. The ships abandoned the faster-than-light journey one by one. There were 47 of them, all that humanity could gather in a short space of time. They were not warships by design. Most were converted exploration ships and mining vessels, but they now carried weapons and crews trained for this moment. Admiral James Chin stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Chess Unity. He was an elderly man, a veteran of Earth's last great conflicts. He hoped to end his days in peace. Instead, he found himself leading humanity's first interstellar war, with all ships reporting back. His executive officer announced, "We are ready, Admiral Chun. Look at the tactical display." Their fleet was assembled at a point in space the Veth called the Hidden Path, a place where ancient star routes intersected, invisible to the Concorde sensors. Torek guided them here after finally finding the Wanderer with Ambassador Relari's data chip. This chip changed everything. It contained maps, routes, weak points, and a message. The Relari wanted to see what humanity would do. "Show us something worth supporting." "What is Wanderer's status?" Chen asked. "Repaired and ready, sir. Captain Vasquez is on standby." Chen smiled slightly. That woman started all of this by refusing to let strangers die. Now she was about to help finish it. "Open a channel for all ships." The communications officer nodded. "This is Admiral Chun to all vessels. You know why we are here. Somewhere in this galaxy, millions of people live as slaves. They are bought and sold, worked to death and told that this is how things have always been. The powers that govern this space have decided that humanity is a threat to their order. They are right." He paused, looking at the stars on the screen. "We did not come to this galaxy looking for war. But now that we're at one, let's beat it. Not for conquest, not for glory, but for every being who has ever been told they don't matter. Today, we show the galaxy what humanity stands for." He closed the channel and turned to his tactical officer. "Send the signal. Start the operation." The plan was bold. Crazy. Probably impossible. But it was the only chance they had. The human fleet divided into 6 groups. Each had a different target, a different mission. They walked the hidden routes that Torok had mapped out. Past the Corax patrols and sensor stations, they were ghosts in the void. They were gone before anyone knew they had passed. The first group attacked a Corax supply depot. 3 days later, the depot was lightly defended, intended to resupply the battle groups hunting the Wanderer. The humans appeared out of nowhere, destroyed the defense platforms, and took everything they could carry before reinforcements arrived. The second group attacked a communications relay. They didn't destroy it, they reprogrammed it. Now, every message that passed through that sector carried a hidden signal, transmitting Captain Vasquez's statement to systems that had never heard it before. The third group encountered a slave train transporting Veth and other debt-scarred species. For the labor camps, the guards barely had time to call for help before the human ships were among them. They didn't kill the guards. They disabled the transportation systems, freed the prisoners, and left the Corax crews floating in escape pods with plenty of air and a simple message. This is what humans do. We free people. The fourth group, led by the Wanderer herself, went after the battle group that was hunting them. 30 warships, the pride of the Corax fleet, the humans did not attack them directly. Instead, they led them on a chase through the densest part of a nebula, where sensors didn't work and weapons couldn't jam. The Corax followed, confident in their numbers. They didn't notice the mines the humans had laid until 3 of their ships exploded. The remaining warships retreated in confusion. They had never fought an enemy like this. Humans did not resist and fought. They attacked and disappeared. They were everywhere and nowhere. Every time the Corax thought they had them cornered, the humans escaped. Throughout the Concorde, the news spread. Humans were reacting. The humans were winning. And debt-marked species began to increase. It all started small. A Veth cargo crew refused to unload their ship at a Corax station. A group of Fenari workers abandoned their assigned tasks. One chosen factory stopped producing weapons for the Dominion Duth and then grew. On the world of Calaxis, 1 million Veth workers stopped working at the same moment. They simply sat down and refused to move. The Corax guards didn't know what to do. They had never seen such a thing. The marked debt always obeyed. That's what they were for. "Get up," ordered the commander. "Get back to work." One of the Veth, an older woman with scars on her arms from years of labor, looked at him. "No, you will be punished. So punish us." But we won't work for you anymore. Humans have shown us that we don't need to be slaves. We choose to be free. The commander raised his weapon. He could have killed her. He could have killed them all. But there were 1,000,000 Veth and only a few thousand guards. And humans were somewhere, watching, waiting. He lowered the gun and called for backup. But reinforcements were busy elsewhere. There have been uprisings on a dozen worlds now. The Corax military was overwhelmed on the unit's bridge. Admiral Chen studied the reports with satisfaction. The plan was working. The Corax were losing control. Your empire was built on fear. And humans showed that the masters could be defeated. Once that fear was broken, everything started to fall apart. Admiral, your communications officer said, we are receiving a message from the Relari Federation. Chen raised an eyebrow. The Relari were one of the 3 great powers. They have remained neutral until now, watching from the sidelines. Stream. Ambassador Relari's son appeared on the screen. She looked tired but satisfied. Admiral Chen, I have watched your campaign with great interest. You have done remarkable things with few resources. Thank you, Ambassador. But we both know this can't last forever. The Corax will eventually concentrate their forces. When this happens, our hit-and-run tactics will not be enough. You are correct. That's why I'm contacting you. She leaned forward. The Relari Federation has officially declared neutrality in this conflict. However, certain resources were misapplied. Supply ships that were lost. Information that was accidentally transmitted to the wrong recipients. Weapons that were discarded in places where someone could find them. Chen understood. The Relari cannot openly support us without facing Corax retaliation. Precisely. But we can look the other way while you acquire what you need. And we are not the only ones. The merchant lords of Zen found its human economy quite interesting. They are eager to establish business relationships. Tessari Combine expressed concern about the expansion of Corax, and it may be willing to provide certain technological assistance. Why? Why help us? Relari's son's expression softened slightly. Because you showed us something we had forgotten. You showed us that it is possible to stand up to tyranny. Concord has been stable for 12,000 years. But stability is not the same as justice. Many of us expected something to change. You are that change. We don't want to rule the galaxy. Chen said. We just want her freely enslaved. I know. That's why we're helping you. She paused. There is one more thing. The Corax are planning a major offensive. They are assembling their fleets for an attack on what they believe to be their main base. They intend to end this rebellion with a decisive blow. Where are they meeting? The Darkfall system. They will be vulnerable during the assembly. If you attack then, you could cripple your armed forces for years. Chen studied her face. Looking for error. He found none. Thank you, Ambassador. Humanity will remember this. Don't thank me yet. Win first. Then we will discuss the future. The screen went dark. Chen turned to his officers. You heard her. We have a chance to break the Corax. I want every ship we have in Darkfall in 3 days. The human fleet moved through the hidden routes, gathering forces. Along the way, others joined them. Veth ships that escaped their masters. Fenari invaders who have been waiting for this moment. Ships chosen and crewed by people who finally chose their own path. When they reached Darkfall, the fleet doubled in size. It was still smaller than the Corax armada, but it was no longer just humanity that fought alone. The Corax fleet hovered in space near the system's gas giant. 200 warships, the largest military force assembled in a century. Grand Admiral Corax then commanded from his flagship, the Dominion's Pride. He was confident of victory. The humans were smart, but they were still outnumbered. This would be the end of their rebellion. Then the Allied fleet arrived. Corax then looked at his tactical display in shock. Where had the Grand Chamber of the High Assembly never seen a day like this? 6 months have passed since the Battle of Darkfall. 6 months of negotiation, reconstruction, change. The Corax domain still existed, but it was broken. Their fleets were dispersed. His government collapsed into factions that fought each other. The Detmark system, the basis of Corax power for 1,000 generations, was being torn apart world by world so that the enslaved species would be free. Not all, not yet. There were still Corax radicals who refused to surrender. There were still labor camps hidden in the dark corners of the galaxy. The work of liberation would take years, perhaps decades, but the chains were breaking. For the first time in living memory, Detmark was able to walk under the open sky without fear. Today, the assembly met to decide the future. Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the center platform, wearing a new uniform. She was promoted, received titles and honors that meant little to her. What mattered was that she was here, speaking for humanity in the heart of galactic civilization. Beside her was Admiral Chun, old and tired but still strong. Behind them was a delegation of human diplomats and military officers, scattered throughout the chamber in sections where they had never been allowed before. They were representatives of the recently freed Dopaveth species, the Fenari, the Chosen, the Relari, dozens of others who stood up, who fought, who died to reach this moment. The president of the assembly, still the ancient Eldith who presided over so much history, called the chamber to order. We are gathered to discuss the formal recognition of humanity as a member species of the galaxy. Concordia, he announced. Furthermore, we must address proposals for the restructuring of Concordia itself, including the abolition of the Detmark system and the establishment of new principles of government. He turned to the human delegation. Captain Vasquez, you have been asked to speak on behalf of your people. The assembly is prepared to hear you. Vasquez stepped forward. She had given many speeches in recent months. This was the most important. Thank you, Speaker. Members of the assembly, friends, she looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of beings from 100 different worlds 6 months ago. My ship entered this galaxy. We came in search of knowledge, connection, proof that we were not alone in the universe. We found this proof. We also found something we didn't expect in a civilization built on suffering. She paused. Choosing my next words carefully, Galactic Concord has existed for 12,000 years. This is an achievement beyond anything humanity has ever accomplished. You have built wonders we can barely imagine. You have united hundreds of species under one banner. You have created stability and peace across vast distances of space. But you built it on a lie. You have told yourself that some people are worth less than others, that some lives exist only to serve. This slavery is acceptable as long as you call it something else. His voice hardened. We humans know something about this. Our own history is full of similar lies. We have enslaved each other. We have oppressed each other. We have committed terrible crimes against our own species. We are no better than you. We are not morally superior. We failed in every way. But we learn. Slowly, painfully, through setbacks and failures, we learn that every person has value, that no one deserves to be owned. This freedom is not a privilege to be conquered, but a right that belongs to everyone. She pointed to the newly released species in the gallery. These people, these beings, are no longer in debt. They are not property. They are citizens, partners, equals. They won their freedom through courage and sacrifice, but they should never have deserved it. The chamber fell silent. All eyes were on her. Humanity was offered a place among the great powers of Concord. We are told that we have proven ourselves worthy to rule, that we could become one of the dominant species, shaping galactic civilization for centuries to come. She shook her head. We refused. Murmurs echoed through the assembly. This was not expected. Species competed for power. They didn't refuse. We do not fight this war or become conquerors. We do not sacrifice our people to build an empire. We fight for freedom not just for the enslaved, but for everyone, including the Orcs. Yes, including the Orcs. They were not born bad. They were not raised to be tyrants. They built a system that corrupted them. This taught them to see other beings as tools and not people. That system is dying now. The Orcs have a chance to become something different, something better. They can join us not as enemies or subjects, but as partners in building a new kind of civilization. She turned to face the great powers directly. The old Concord was built on hierarchy, about the strong ruling the weak, assuming that some species are worth more than others. That Concord is gone. We propose something new. Admiral Chin stepped forward, handing him a document that was the product of months of negotiation and debate. We propose a free popular pact, a union of equals where each species has a voice, where no one is enslaved, where disputes are resolved through negotiation rather than domination, where the strong protect the weak instead of exploiting them. She held up the document. This is not a document so human. It was written by Veth and Fenari, by Chosen and Relari, for representatives of all species who fought for freedom. We write together because we are going to live it together. The compact does not require you to participate. The Concord can continue as is, with those who prefer the old days. But we will build something different. Something that proves that there is another way. She downloaded the document and looked at the assembly one last time. My kind has a saying. The arc of the story bends toward justice. It doesn't fold alone. It bends because people choose to bend it. Because ordinary beings do extraordinary things. Because someone, somewhere decides that wrong cannot stand. 6 months ago, my ship responded to a distress call. We saved 14 people because they needed to be saved. That's all. We don't plan on starting a war. We did not intend to reshape galactic civilization. We just did what was right. That's what we're asking of you now. Do not follow humanity. Do not obey us, or fear us, or worship us. Just to do what's right. Look at the galaxy as it is, and decide to make it better. She backed away. Thanks for listening. The chamber exploded with noise. Discussions, applause, protests, debates. The speaker called for order repeatedly. It took almost an hour for the assembly to calm down enough to proceed until voting began. Species by species. Representatives declared their positions. The remnants of the Korok refused, of course. The same happened with some of his allies. These two invested in the old system to imagine anything else. But others joined the pact. The Relari were first, followed by the Tissari and Merchant Lords, then the smaller species. Those who have waited for this moment, who have dreamed of freedom for generations. When voting ended, more than half of Concord had chosen to join the Free People's Pact, but it was not unanimous. It wasn't perfect. There would be divisions and conflicts in the following years. But it was a start. Torek stood in the gallery, watching the story unfold. He had aged in recent months, although he was still young by Veth standards. The innocence disappeared from his eyes, replaced by something harder. Something that saw a lot of death and suffering. But there was also hope there. Hope that was kindled on a damaged cargo ship, when strangers from an unknown world risked everything to save him. After the assembly concluded, he found Captain Vasquez alone on a porch. Looking up at the stars, Captain, she turned and smiled. Torek, I wanted to talk to you. You have. I heard about your commission. Captain Torek, commander of the exploration ship Veth waits for light. It has a nice touch. Torek lowered his head, ashamed. They named the ship after something you said. In your first message to the galaxy. You said humanity brings hope, right? I don't remember half of what I said back then. I was too tired and scared to think straight. You said it. I remember. He looked at her with serious eyes. I remember everything. They were silent for a moment, watching the distant stars. What will you do now? Torek asked. Vasquez shrugged. They want me to be an admiral. A diplomat, a symbol. I'll probably end up shuffling papers and giving speeches for the rest of my life. She didn't seem entirely happy about it. Is this what you want? I want to explore. I want to see what's beyond the edges of the maps. But I think my exploring days are over. She smiled sadly. Someone has to do the boring work of actually building a civilization. You could come with me. Torek offered. The light of hope will go to an uncharted space next month. We are looking for new species, new worlds. A human advisor would be helpful. Vasquez looked at him, surprised. Then she laughed a laugh, genuine output. The first in months. You know what? Let me think about this. It's tempting. The offer remains. For as long as you want. Thank you, Torek. She reached out and touched his arm gently. Thank you for everything. We couldn't have done this without you. I could say the same to you. They stood together on the porch as the station slowly turned, bringing new stars into view. Somewhere out there, billions of beings were awakening to a galaxy that had changed. Former slaves took their first steps as